Thank you, Chairman. Secretary Esper, Chairman Milley, thank you so much for sticking around to hear from me, the low man here. You have terrific endurance to make it through all this, so thank you. Real quick, I wanted to ask you, the National Defense Strategy outlines that we must prioritize R&D and emerging technologies like quantum and AI because China is investing very heavily in those areas. Secretary, do you feel that we're investing adequate resources to keep pace with China?
In the two areas that you mentioned, I do. There's those two, and there's 9 other areas where we've noted as critical technologies for the future, and we're putting as much as we can into those systems and trying to accelerate development. Okay.
And I want to ask, too, because I have an Air Force research laboratory in my district in Rome, New York, and in this year's NDAA, last year's NDAA, we established a Quantum Information Science Innovation Center there to really help leverage partnerships between DoD, academia, and industry. Can you talk to me a little bit about the importance of those kinds of partnerships in this area?
I think it gets to the issue we discussed earlier about having a broad innovation base and making sure we're tapping all potential resources, whether it's not just the traditional, big defense companies, but also academia, small innovators, entrepreneurs, the whole broad range to make sure we can deliver the very best for our warfighters.
Okay. And then I want to talk a little bit about counter UAS. I'm specifically concerned about what our adversaries are up to, and I wanted to ask, because this same research lab in Rome is doing a lot of great work developing counter UAS technologies to mitigate these threats from our adversaries. So Secretary Esper, Chairman Milley, can you speak briefly about how the services are postured to address the UAS threat?
It is a challenging threat that's constantly evolving, in many cases quicker than we can respond. We had all services moving out on a number of different programs. I consolidated that last year. We made the Army the executive agent, and now they're pulling together a much more focused effort that looks at fewer systems but tries to accelerate them. But we need to get to the point where it's much less hardware-based but software-based and going back to the roots so we can kind of stay ahead of the enemy instead of playing catch-up with regard to, and there's different systems. We have to have systems that we can use back here in the States, systems we can use overseas with partner countries, and then there's systems we need to be able to use on the battlefield.
Chairman Milley.
So the threat is increasing significantly in the unmanned aerial systems, and this threat not only applies to nation states like China and Russia and Iran, North Korea, but terrorist organizations are also increasing the use of unmanned aerial systems. So we're putting a fair amount of money, I think, in the development of ground-based counter UAS systems, and we're getting them deployed. And in fact, we're using some of them right now in the various locations like Afghanistan and Iraq.
Can you talk, to the extent you can talk about it, what collaboration is there with private industry right now around that? Because I could tell you that the lab that's in the district that I represent is right next door to an FAA test site for unmanned aerial research, and really the 50-mile radius that they have to test drones in upstate New York seems to be in an ideal location, located right next door to an Air Force research laboratory that's doing all this counter-UAS work. What kind of collaborations are taking place between DoD and private industry?
I know there is collaboration. I can't give you the specifics. I'd have to come back to you with specific collaboration incident or examples of collaboration, but I know there is collaboration with industry, and all of these systems are built by the commercial industry. So all we do is lay on requirements and then start funding the research development. But all that's done by the commercial industry.
Okay. And Secretary Esper, can you?
I think we need to take that back, Congressman, and give you a response, and I'll pass it along to the Air Force as well when they come up to testify.
That'd be great. And I'd love to invite you up there at some point in time to Rome if you ever want to see the work they're doing at the lab there, the Air Force Research Laboratory and the test site right next door there. I think there's a lot that can be done, and certainly they're on the cutting edge of a lot of the counter-UAS technology that's taking place.
Good. Thank you.
Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.